Good evening, listeners of Women Empowerment Program on CMS 91.1. You're listening to Sonia tonight. 2020 has indeed been a year to remember. We have had one of the worst bushfires in Australian history, followed by the world coronavirus pandemic. I hope you all are keeping safe, staying home, and tuning in to FM 91.1 to keep you company and to bring you important issues other than just the COVID-19. It is early days yet, so some of you may not realize that 2020 is also the election for the ACT government. In fact, the general election for the ACT Legislative Assembly will be held on Saturday, 17 October 2020. And the Women Empowerment Program will bring to you the latest on what is happening with the ACT local election, and we'll talk to some, if not all, of the candidates vying for your votes. So keep listening to Women Empowerment Program to hear what each candidate brings to the table. Will she or he be tackling issues important to you and to your family and to the community? With this in mind, we have on our program today our very first candidate interview, the independent candidate for Yerrabi, Dr. Fu Xin Li. Now, Dr. Li is an educator with a PhD in education from Monash University. He is a father of 2 boys. He is an accomplished and active member of the Canberra community. Now, just to list a few of his achievements. He is the founder and principal of the Australian Contemporary Chinese School, the president of Chinese Language Teachers Association of the ACT, as well as the national president of Chinese Language Teachers Federation Incorporated. He is the president of Chinese Photographic Federation of Australia, Inc. He is also the secretary and public officer of the Australian Federation of Ethnic School Associations. Dr. Li, welcome to the Women Empowerment Program.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
I'm good today. It's really great having you on the show tonight.
Okay, thank you for your invitation, and thank you for your good starting with the introduction to me.
That is great. Now, I've listed a few of your achievements, so it is very obvious that you're quite accomplished. And we can also tell that your focus has been education so far. So could you tell the listeners, why have you chosen to enter politics at this stage of your life?
Yes, I lived in Australia for 27 years and lived in Canberra for 19 years. And I have been involved in various associations and communities to work for the local community, nationally and even internationally for 27 years. I deal with a number of issues with the government agencies and the politicians as well. I think it's time for me to stand up for election to represent and support the local community directly from the parliament. In the past 2 years, I received invitations from the different political parties, but after careful consideration, I decided to stand up for this election as independent of Yerrabi, where I lived for 70 years.
That is great. So can you tell the candidate a little bit? You said you considered a bit. So can you tell the listeners why independent? Why not joining, one of the 2 major political parties in the ACT government?
Yes, from my understanding, the independent in the parliament is truly and directly represent from the community. And I think in the past years, the politics from the public, from the political parties, I think we have been getting used to support the parties And in the past years in ACT, there are only a few of successful candidates as independent in the parliament. And they did a very good job to represent and support the local community. And that's why I decided to stand up this election as independent of Yerrabi, where I lived for 70 years, as I said.
That is great to hear. So you've been in the Yerrabi area for 17 years. You understand the issues that's important to the local community, and you believe that you can actually sort of help and represent the community better as an independent candidate. That's why you're standing as an independent candidate.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, that's great. Now, would you mind telling our listeners what are some of your important policies?
Yes. As I just said, I lived in Canberra for 19 years and lived in the electorate of Yerrabi for 70 years. I love this most livable city. As a father, I care about the future of my two boys. As an educator, I care about the education of the younger generations and more government grants for learning community languages. As a community leader and an independent candidate for Yerrabi, I care about the crisis of this COVID-19 virus. It is on the top of my priority in ACT and in Australia now. I also care about the elders, women, Aboriginals in the social security and welfare. I support the low rates, low levies, low rent, small business, and I understand these are important parts of our everyday life. I also care about the environment and the heritage protection. During the bushfire last year, until the beginning of this year, I went out almost every day to observe and take photos of the bushfires as a record of this natural disaster. I'm organizing the photo display named I Love Canberra in May this year. I will display some photos to show the community for the remembrance of the loss in this natural disaster, and I hope this will remind us to do something in the future to prevent this bushfire to happen again. Also, as a fast-growing capital city, we can see that Canberra is becoming more dynamic and more open. So the internationalization of Canberra will be future direction. So in this way, we need more direct flights between Canberra and the Asian countries and the rest of the world. My background is from education. This is my academic background. I suppose the schools teach basic knowledge and skills. I support the international education in ACT. I'm happy to see more international students to study in Canberra. I support the internationalization of the University of Canberra, not only having more students to come to study in UC campus in Canberra, but also including exploring the possibility to establish international campuses overseas. Also, as an independent candidate of Yerrabi, I would be happy to see that Gungahlin, as a new and vibrant town center, I'm happy to see we can build Gungahlin as the second CBD in Canberra. I support to build a new hospital in Gungahlin to reduce the waiting time in hospitals for our residents. I'm also to say, if we have a library with more multicultural collections and resources, and even an international school in Ganggalan district as well. And also for the family, for my policy, I really believe the importance of education, employment, and family. And as an independent candidate for Yerrabi, and if I can say for all Australians, I will watch the government and the politicians to ensure that the government delivers the first-class services, including transport, education, environment, community services, and public health, including protection from this corona disease. Yes, thanks.
That is great. I can hear you're very passionate about the policies. You have a lot of issues that you're interested in. So, and on this program, throughout the program, I will try to touch on some of the topics. We may not be able to go through all of them, but some of the topics. And it's good to see that. I think you are the president of the Photographic Society as well. So you're using your skills and your background to document the the bushfire. And so that's something you're contributing to the community. And it's really good to see that. Now, you've touched about, aged care, women, heritage. You also touch about the coronavirus as well. So in this current environment, we cannot not talk about the coronavirus. So can you please tell the listeners, if you are elected, what kind of policies would you bring, or what kind of actions would yourself do to help ease the current situation? And what kind of policies would you implement to prevent or to combat, to help to battle future pandemics like this?
Yes, as you said at the beginning of our interview, this year is the tough year for all of us. This coronavirus is unprecedented, and this is a natural disaster of a human being. So we are happy to say that in ACT, it is well controlled as well in Australia. And this is what we can be proud of in the world, but it's not too early to celebrate. I support to continue the lockdown, to stay at home, keep social distance, and save life. This disaster is once in a life. No one could know this pandemic beforehand. However, as the proverb says, it is not too late to mend the foe, even after some of the sheep have been lost. I would support to establish the COVID-19 Virus Research Foundation in ACT to support more research in ACT and the protection of the local Canberrans. In the past weeks, I have been using the facilities to connecting the community locally and nationally. I have been working close with the colleagues in the federation and associations to support the schools and the teachers. Locally in Canberra, I imported 10,000 masks to donate to the local communities, including hospital, aged care, schools, and shops, to help to protect the community. 5,000 bottles of sanitizer are on the way to Canberra for the local community. That's what I can do, and I will do whatever I can to protect the community.
That is fantastic. I can see that you've already done something very practical. Like you've imported 10,000 masks and distributed 5,000 hand sanitizers to the community, to the hospital, and to the local community as well. And that is great practical things you're already doing for the community, and it's really good to see. So what kind of, giving the experience and lessons learned, for all of us facing this pandemic, do you think you will, if you were elected, what kind of policies do you think you can implement to help battle future pandemics such as this?
I think if I'm elected, I will strongly support to reinforce the established mechanism of the emergency to support the future possible damage. And also, we can establish the special organizations in the medical system to watch, to research, and to look after the Canberrans by doing more research and informations from the worldwide to protect locally in Canberra.
That is fantastic. So research basically, and into protection against disease and virus for Canberra, and maybe even for the larger community nationally and internationally, right? So moving on from the coronavirus, Dr. Lee also touched about your policies. You're interested in women policies, aged care, and stuff, and all that. So this being the women empowerment program, I have to ask you a question. If you were elected, what would you do to help encourage women participation in politics and also in the workforce? I think ACT is very lucky in the sense that women, like politicians, actually in majority. This is not so nationally. So what would you do to encourage women participation?
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you my life and work experience. I'm very happy to have this interview with the Women Empowerment Program. For myself, I have a good working relationship with the female colleagues everywhere in workplace, schools, associations, and the community. We respect each other and cooperate each other. And I'll tell you the story. Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Dr. Lee.
Yeah, thank you so much. And from the early morning, I received a lot of birthday greetings. But I give this special day to my beloved mother who is overseas now. As my birthday, I understand, was the suffering day of my mother when I was born.
Yep.
So for me, it's my Thanksgiving day to my mother. And from the childhood to adult, I grew up from the care of my mother, my elder sister, my wife, and even a lot of female colleagues and friends. The woman shares half of the world. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to work with the woman in workplace, and also I like to cooperate with the relevant women's organizations and associations. So, for example, in 2019, when we organized the donation to the drought in Queensland, we decided to donate our money to the local committee via ACT Women's Association, because I believe this association, the Women's Association, is in a safe hand. We trust, we rely on. In my policy statement, I clearly state that I care about women in the community and in the electorate. In Yerrabi, there are lots of women who received a good education, very clever, and works in the professional area. I'm happy to see more and more females to stand up for the election and to be politicians in ACT. I truly support the gender equity, and also this is the genuine democracy in Australia. And I can say, I'm happy to say, in the parliament, there are good numbers of female politicians. And I'm happy to say more females of higher levels in the public area and career in this region and also in the national politics. Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. So basically, you talked about growing up surrounded by female role models, your mother, your wife, your colleagues. So you have empathy and respect for women. And basically, you will encourage yourself personally, will encourage their participation in the workforce. You will encourage educated women to put their hand up for politics. So you will support them in whatever they do. That is great to hear, Dr. Lee. Now,
yes, thanks.
Sure. And, amongst the policies you espoused, you also mentioned aged care. So aged care is in an aging society, the world over and stuff. So it's a problem for Australia as well as the rest of the world. And in the ACT as well, because of aging population and chronic disease and stuff and all that. What would you do if you were elected? What would your response be to the increased levels of preventable chronic disease and the inadequate access to aged care services? As many people move away, from major cities and they're coming to small cities like Canberra.
Yes, caring the elders is an important part of my policy, and also in the chronic disease, elders need extra care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the aging people is a fast-growing group, and we need more well-trained carers to work in the aged care sectors. And during this COVID-19 virus, I think the aged people, they need extra cares. So I also donate some surgical masks to the aged cares. And I think in ACT, we need a more beneficial policy to attract more qualified staff to work in the area of the aged care. Compared to the metropolitans like the Sydney and Melbourne, Canberra is small, but is growing fast. We have more and more populations. We have children. We have a young group. We have adult group, and also the age group is emerging group. So we need a more supportable system to care about the elders. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I will link this back to the hospital question that you mentioned towards the end. But next, I would like to ask you to tell the listeners, it's sort of related to the first question I asked you, more and more people are moving from bigger cities, metropolitan cities like Sydney, Melbourne. They're now moving to smaller cities and like Canberra. And Canberra is getting very, very crowded. I've been in Canberra since 1997, and from seeing barely any cars on the road when I go to work to sometimes taking an hour one way to work. So what could you do to help ease the Canberra congestion now that Canberra is getting more and more crowded?
Yes, what you raised also comes to my concerns, as it is more and more crowded, especially during the peak hours. And in our city life in ACT, I think the transport, health, and education are the priorities. The transportation in ACT has been improved in recent years, but still not enough. And we have the large rail now. The large rail is helpful, and also it is symbolic to the modern city. But this is not the permanent solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the solution of the transportation, not only for the time being, but also we should establish the vision for the future. So my understanding is that Canberra is growing. The city is facing with more and more population. As you see, the years ago, you can drive around easily, but now we got the traffic congestion. And also, when I moved to Canberra 19 years ago, I have the similar feeling as you. Yeah, so, as an independent candidate of Yerrabi, I would to support to build Gungahlin into the second CBD in Canberra. We can provide, by this way, we can provide more work opportunities and to balance the metropolitan functions in Canberra. Because the Gungahlin is a young, fast-growing, and vibrant town center. I believe this will release the pressure of the transportation in Canberra, improve the transportation in ACT, and also I believe this is a right direction of city development.
That is great to hear. Can you tell the listeners how would you go about doing that? Building, it's a great idea, having Gungahlin becoming another CBD so that the traffic and the congestions, is being moved away from Civic, let's say, and coming to Gungahlin. But how do you go about doing that, implementing policies to encourage that?
Yes, actually, I have lived in this Yerrabi area for 70 years and have a school in Gungahlin Center.
Mm-hmm.
So each week I visit Gungahlin, and now I visit maybe more than 1 or 2 times to Gungahlin. I can see in Gungahlin as the new suburb, we have land, still we have space, still we have potentials, and Gungahlin is the a town center or suburb or district with the young people, with the young people. So we have lots of the potentials. We have lots of future with more populations born locally there. So I think this is our possibility to build the second, build Gungahlin as the second CBD as Canberra, because the Gungahlin area is also very easily to drop out to link to Sydney or Melbourne, and it's really an ideal area to be developed as the second CBD in Canberra.
That's good to hear. So I can see, Gungahlin has a lot of natural sort of advantages to becoming the CBD, and you would help to promote that if you elect it.
Yes.
And you also mentioned building a third hospital in the Gungahlin area?
Yes, I support the idea to build a new hospital in Gungahlin. In this way, we can greatly reduce the hospital waiting time for our residents.
That is great. I think Canberra Hospital is really, really, really overcrowded, and so is the one in Bruce. So it would be a great idea if it's possible to have a third hospital in Gungahlin, and we look forward to that policy being implemented if you're elected. Dr. Lee.
Yes, definitely. If I'm elected, this is my strong proposal to the ACT government.
That is great. I think we heard a lot from Dr. Lee. And so, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for your interview, Sonia.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Sonia on Women Empowerment Program, CMS 91.1. You've just heard Dr. Fuxing Lee, the independent candidate standing for the Yerrabi area. Now, did you like what he had to say? Did his policies interest you? If you're interested to hear more from other candidates, if you're interested to hear policies and topics closer to your heart, please write to us at we.cmsradio@gmail.com, or you can seek us out on Facebook, Women Empowerment on CMS 91.1. I hope to bring you another interesting candidate on the next program. So until then, I'll say good night and goodbye. Bye-bye.